Good afternoon, folks. This is House Corrections and Institutions Committee. This is Friday the 13th. It's Friday, March 13th, and it's been quite a March 13th so far. So we have a new draft in front of us. It's draft 4.2. I want to let the committee members know too that Will is on Zoom. And he has offered to be willing to vote when we get to that point, to use up one of his days, the ability to vote remotely. So Hillary, welcome. And if you could walk us through the bill.
For the record, Hillary Chitter Ames for the Office of Legislative Counsel. I'll go ahead and share my screen. All right, we have draft 4.2. This reflects in highlights changes that the committee discussed yesterday. So the first change will be on page 5. This is the classification and not classification yet. This is the gender identification and non-discrimination section. We had some discussion yesterday about making sure that volunteers were not included in some of the requirements to avoid any kind of legal risk. So this is lines 13 through 14. The department shall ensure department staff and contractors receive gender responsive training proportional to their level of interaction with inmates. On lines 16 through 21, this is the non-discrimination subsection. Two things we talked about yesterday. One, removing references to programming. So that does that on line 17. The department's decision not to accommodate an individual's search, classification, or housing placement request shall not be based solely on. And here, this was turning into a long list that was not particularly clear. So the suggestion in this draft is to list out the 3 bases in what is hopefully a little bit clearer format. So shall not be based solely on the individual's anatomy, including the genitalia, other physical characteristics, or diverse gender expression.
So what's really important here is the or.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to be all 3. It's one of them.
Exactly. Moving forward onto page 6, this is one change in the searches section on lines 12 through 13. And this was a change that the committee discussed yesterday for clarity and to make sure we were using the same accommodating or not accommodating terms that we were using throughout this section. So the department shall consider on an individualized basis whether a transgender, gender diverse, or intersex individual's request as to the gender of staff who may perform a lawful search would best support the individual's health and safety, and whether accommodating the inmate's request would pose risks to safety or security.
I want the committee just to hold a little bit and read this to yourself, because now we're going to a little bit more substantial change than the previous ones, just to make sure we understand it. Again, these searches are only lawful to search for DOC. It is not WellPath. It's not medical. It's for forensic. There's not medical. We okay with this? Yep.
That's what we came to yesterday.
Yep.
Chair, can I just ask about procedure? Are we just going through each change and then are we going through again, or like what are we?
We went through it all yesterday, line by line. So
Yeah.
now is really the time to focus in on these changes.
And I gotta go for a question at the bottom.
Okay.
I have with apologies to the committee.
Yep, no, that's fine.
This is page 5, line 16, the non-discrimination. It's a grammatical question for
Mhm.
council. With the various ors in lines 19, 20, and 21.
Mhm.
could you decide not to accommodate based on the individual's anatomy and physical characteristics? You're taking the
As
two of
in
them together.
combined?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, and this reads that way.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that answer.
I'm having trouble with language right now, I think, because lunch is late, but I was just trying to make sure that you couldn't decide not to accommodate. It says or through all these, right? I'm wondering, what about if you take two of them together? Can you decide not to accommodate based on one and two?
They're all, or,
Solely.
no, the way it's drafted is you've got, based solely on the individual's, one, anatomy, two, other physical characteristics, or three, diverse gender expression. So that or being between two and three, I think indicates you can,
You may not discriminate on any of them.
one of those, if one of those are in place, is the trigger. It doesn't need two or three.
Right.
I think the shall not be based is also important to any kind of normal reading of this. To
Yes.
exclude relying on one or any combination of the three.
Okay,
I think if the committee wanted to be even clearer, you could say something like shall not be based on one or a combination of the following.
I mean, if council says it's unnecessary, it's
But it-
unnecessary, I just have a problem, yeah.
It's a good thought. I don't think there's, I don't think it's really susceptible to that reading, but
Great,
if the committee had any concerns, there are different ways we could formulate that.
oh, just wanted to check.
Evan, you got a question?
Yeah, then the way I'm understanding what you're saying is instead of saying solely, it should be any.
Her, this is legislative council legal language.
Shall not be based on any of the following. I
What
think-
you're saying. Here,
One thing that we heard from, I'm trying to think now, because originally this had discriminatory reason, which is part of why we had solely in there. And so I'm just thinking back to what work solely is doing. Because now, when we had discriminatory reason, it was that the decision could not be based just on a legally protected category. Here, I think the intention is that there's no reliance on these three things in this decision making at all. So I think one option that could address these 2 points is to remove solely, which was added for the legally protected category language, but I think is not needed and could further clarify the question of, are you considering any of these items?
So I read the decision not to accommodate the request shall not be based on the individual's anatomy or physical characteristics or diverse gender expression.
Although I think the department, sorry, I'm just thinking through this. The department had initially said, we do make some housing determinations based on whether
Right.
someone has male or female anatomy.
of course.
The language here of the decision not to accommodate a request, the only individuals making requests are gender diverse, transgender, or intersex inmates under the statute. And so I think that is one way to clarify that this doesn't pertain to the department's decision making for individuals who do not identify as gender diverse, transgender, or intersex. But it makes me reconsider whether removing solely is the right way to go. Just thinking for a moment. I don't think that because the statute is clear that requests are only made by individuals who are gender diverse, transgender, or intersex. I think removing solely here does not raise the department's concern about their decision-making based on anatomy for inmates who are not gender diverse, transgender, or intersex. And I think the committee's intent was that in deciding not to accommodate a transgender, gender diverse, or intersex individual's request, that the department should not be considering any of these categories.
Kevin?
I almost feel like I need to, if possible, have a one-on-one with you. Because I don't want to waste the committee's time with questions that will not help you move forward. Is that possible?
Well, it is, but it's only gonna delay the work. I don't want to say no, but you don't feel comfortable in sharing?
Politely, I'm not going to be able to vote yes for this in any way. So for me to fine tune it would be possibly wasting the committee's time. And if that's what you'd prefer me just to listen, I can do that.
Would change,
You take solely and out or not. Totally changes the whole premise of this paragraph. If you can't use any of these characteristics to make a decision as to whether a person should be in a male or female setting,
A gender diverse person. We're talking specifically about gender diverse for people with this portion policy.
I didn't understand what you said.
In this portion of policy, we're talking specifically about people who identify as gender diverse.
not not everyone else in the facility. Just folks, and that's what I wanted to clarify. We're in section 28 VSA Title 129, which only pertains to gender diverse folks, correct? Not to the overall, everyone who is incarcerated. Or is it
I
not?
think the way we've drafted it is that where something is specific to a transgender, gender diverse, or intersex individual, we have specified that. So for example, on page 5, line 4, what it says is that the only individuals who request the gender of staff who can perform a lawful search are transgender, gender diverse, or intersex individuals. The question for housing is in the housing section. But that is similarly, so this is page 7, line 1. During the initial intake process and in as private a setting as possible, the department shall ask each transgender, gender diverse, or intersex inmate to specify the inmate's request as to housing placement. So under any reading, and when you're reading statutes, you would read these sections together. The only times that the department might be deciding not to accommodate a search classification or housing placement request will be for individuals who have identified as gender diverse, transgender, or intersex.
So the non-discrimination, this leads into my question that Kevin was kind of getting at too. So on page 5, line 16, B, pertains to non-discrimination. So if you put that up on the screen, Hillary.
Yes.
Does that pertain, that non-discrimination clause there in B, does that pertain to everyone who is incarcerated in a facility? Or does that pertain just to the, what you had said before, transgender, gender diverse, or intersex individuals?
The heading non-discrimination is broad, but the language of this provision is specific to the department's decisions whether or not to accommodate a request. And the only times that they will be deciding whether or not to accommodate a search classification or housing placement request will be for gender diverse, transgender, or intersex individuals under the terms of the statute.
Yeah, Haley, so Haley, if you could identify,
Yeah.
Haley, not
That's
Haley.
okay.
Haley, if you could identify yourself for the record, please.
For the record, Haley Summer, Director of Communications for DOC. That is almost accurate. However, the department does sometimes get requests from individuals to be housed at our state facility. And while in most cases it would be appropriate if the individual is sentenced, there could be times in which they have medical conditions that don't meet the threshold for them being able to be sent out of state. So I don't believe that this language implicates that, but I just wanted the committee to be aware of the additional lane in which we get these requests.
I
So
think that's useful. So one option to clarify this in the language is to say the department's decision not to accommodate a gender diverse, transgender, or intersex individual's search classification or housing placement request shall not be based solely on, and at that point, I think there's no concern about leaving solely from the original question of needing to consider this for individuals who do not identify as gender diverse, transgender, or intersex.
Just a thought for council, a question for council, not be based solely on one or more of the following. Does that remove what I'm talking about, whether or not it's an issue? Solely on one or more of the following, period. The individuals.
the or implicates that.
Yeah.
The or does that work? I think one or a combination of the individuals would be language responsive to your initial point of, could you consider two?
Yeah.
I don't think that makes a huge difference between the two. But it's certainly an option if the committee would.
No, if I flag it on issue, I don't want to kill us over it.
I like clarifying that the non-discrimination clause here is for, make sure the language is right, transgender, gender diverse, or intersex individuals. I think that's important to be clarified here.
And again, it's a non-discrimination subsection in the context of a section on gender identification. So I don't think it's.
It's belts and suspenders.
Yes, and I think adding it is still worthwhile. I just mean that I think the way this section is structured makes clear that this is a kind of specific non-discrimination provision with respect to a certain group of folks. And it doesn't imply that the department is not discriminating elsewhere. Sorry for the tone.
Are folks clear on this or not? So adding that language, Kevin, does that help in terms of understanding this section a little better?
No, unfortunately, I think I understand it very well. And so I'm going to refrain, I'm going to listen, but my mind is made up. Sorry.
Yep.
All right, so I can make that change.
So it would read the department's decision not to accommodate
A, transgender, gender diverse, or intersex individuals search classification or housing placement request shall not be based solely on the individual's anatomy, including the genitalia, other physical characteristics, or diverse gender expression.
We're good with that. Okay, let's keep going now.
Sounds like a useful point to clarify, though.
Yeah, appreciate that.
All right, moving forward, we touched on the searches language and the committee read that. So I will keep moving on page 6. This is lines 15 through 16. The title of this section, this is another change consistent with the committee's decision yesterday to remove references to program placement or programming placement. So the title of this new section, 701C, will be classification and housing placement determinations.
Seems crystal clear.
Love to hear it. Page 17, this is continuing in the classification and housing placement section.
Page
on
7.
You may. What did I say?
17.
Really skipping. We in fact do not have 17 anymore. It's the draft.
Look at the wrong graph.
This tells you that the end of crossover week is not peak brain activity, but I promise I am doing my best. Page 7, which I even have up on the screen this time, so I've got something right. On line 7, the multidisciplinary review panels shall consult with medical personnel, mental health professionals with experience in gender dysphoria or gender affirming care, and personnel who have received training aligned with nationally recognized standards for gender affirming care. So the decision by the committee yesterday was to move regularly. Pretty straightforward edit there. Moving forward in subsection D, so this is still page 7, and this is on lines 16 through 17. This section talks about the department's individualized consideration of housing and placement, questions. And this last line, the department may determine that a classification or housing placement would not best protect health or safety at that time, but may recommend discussing reassessment with the inmate at a later time. So discussion yesterday was that this could be an ongoing conversation. Might say, come back and we'll revisit it. And the committee thought that at a later time was a better way to capture that than after a specified period.
That work for the committee? Because we spent a lot of time talking
Yeah.
about this yesterday.
Yeah, it's good.
Great. At the bottom of page 7 and moving on to page 8.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
If the department finds that accommodating the inmate's request would pose an unreasonable risk to institutional safety or security, the inmate's health or safety, or the safety or security of other inmates or staff, the department may decide that it cannot accommodate the request. So we added institutional yesterday. The committee wanted to capture the kind of operational concerns that were mentioned. So adding institutional before safety or security would cover that. And then changing the ands to ors was to make sure that you were covering the possibility that just an inmate's health or safety, if there were an unreasonable risk to any one of these things, that it would be enough for the department to find that it could not accommodate the request.
Let's spend some time and read this because we spent a lot of time on this yesterday.
I can clear a room, huh?
No, they've been here all day.
Really not fans of grammar.
Anybody?
Yeah, they've been here all day, so
Were
it's,
they supposed to speak?
no,
Okay.
no, oh, good God, no. They were just here to observe.
Okay, cool.
We all right with this particular? Haley, does this one work? Because we spent time with you folks yesterday on it.
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Moving forward, on page 8, we have subdivision 2. The department shall make its classification and housing placement determinations on an objective basis. So this was discussed yesterday.
The one that was discussed.
Does this be plural? Objective basis?
Are you coming back?
I think it could be either. I think
Good, no, so not-
basis does not preclude multiple reasons.
Sorry, what was your question?
Just wondering if it should be plural, objective bases rather than an objective basis.
I think one advantage to referencing basis instead of bases is that there might in fact be one reason,
Yeah,
in which case
yeah.
bases suggests that there must be more than one. Whereas an
Okay.
objective basis just means whatever the ground or grounds are, the reason or reasons are, they must be objective.
Thank you.
Evaluation, no point, forget it, drop it.
We can have evaluation and
Thought about it. Yeah.
Cool, never mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good.
the folks are good.
Yeah, moving forward, this is still page 8, subsection F. line 14. This was a change to be consistent with the change that we made earlier, referring to facility outside the state and not contracted facility outside the state. So lines 13 through 15 read, the department shall coordinate with any facility outside the state to assess and reassess placement determinations. On line 16 through 17, this was a change to be consistent throughout the bill with reference to housing placement. Where it referenced housing placement, there might be other places in statute where placement is used more generally, but where we're talking about housing placement, we are saying housing placement. On page 9, this is subsection H. Two changes here on line 3. Again, this was to confirm that we were talking about housing placement and not some other kind of placement, and to remove a reference to programming decisions. So the first part of subsection H reads, the department shall give a transgender, gender diverse, or intersex inmate's perception of health and safety serious consideration in making bed assignment and housing placement decisions, including, and this language was something that the committee discussed yesterday, selecting the inmate with whom the inmate is housed to best support safety and security. And there was a question from DOC that the previous language suggested that the decision was whether to house someone with someone else or not, and not who they were being housed with. So this was suggested as a at least clearer, if not elegant, short of elegant way to express that.
So Haley, is this clearer for you
Yes.
folks?
Thank you.
This is clear. Good, folks?
Mhm.
Okay, let's keep going. It's a few pages.
These changes have not, the previous section has not changed, the first part of it. In subsection B, which did change, and we discussed this yesterday, page 12, lines 2 through 7. Starting in 2027, the Commissioner of Corrections shall annually submit a report to the House Committee on Corrections and Institutions and the Senate Committee on Institutions that provides the data required under 28 CFR, section 115.87.
I wasn't here yesterday, so I'm sure you had this conversation, but why is it vague? Just like in that year, not a specific date, or is that next thing coming?
Jen mentioned yesterday that for various reasons, they do not produce the reports at the same time every year.
Earlier in the morning, she said.
Yes, in the morning.
Gotcha.
And we might have touched on this language in the evening. So looking at it, I feel like I said this before,
Yeah,
but yes, that DOC had said that sometimes they don't get the data to finish the survey for various reasons at the federal level. So this is a way to say that each year, when they do the report, they need to also submit it. And the change language at the end is a way to capture the 2 reports the committee wanted and not the 3rd report that the committee did not think should be submitted.
That works, Haley?
Yeah, that works for me.
Great. And I think there is only
You got one more on page 14.
one more, page 14. This was just a grammar change, but flagging it. So lines 5 through 6, the Joint Legislative Justice Oversight Committee shall review the policy and recommend whether updates to the policy are warranted and what, if any, statutory changes might be warranted. So previously didn't say what they were reviewing specifically, and best practice, specify the policy.
And that's for the search review.
Correct. That was for the search policy review. And the final one, in section 12 on gender affirming care, this is line 15, on or before October 15th, 2026, Joint Justice shall review current practices, and submit a report to the House Committee on Corrections and Senate Committee on Institutions. I'm paraphrasing there, but the key change was, the date based on the committee's request that, it not be at the very end of the year. So those are the changes from yesterday. If there's anything else the committee wanted to discuss, there's certainly time. I can also make I think one change the committee talked about now, so that if the committee is ready to vote, we'll have a version ready.
And there'll be another draft version,
Yes, it'll be 4.3.
the date, be the same date. So, other questions? Questions? We did a lot of work. Would like to. I was just going to term for. I want to see on this particular piece of legislation, and I know you ran it up the flagpole in your world. So if you could share with us where the department stands or thinking, what they're thinking on the bill.
Happy to do that. Once again, the department has appreciated the collaboration with the committee on the bill. Feels like it was a real partnership in terms of your willingness to amend the language so that it was consistent with what DOC currently does in practice. As a result of that, because none of the language changes are practice or policy, DOC has no concerns with the implications of the bill. The commissioner maintains his perspective that the language is somewhat granular for our ability to do policy changes in the future, internal department policy changes, but it's not something that the department is actively opposing.
Great, thank you. You'll get used to it. Legislation works. He just hasn't experienced legislation, so I get it. For that. So let's give Hillary a chance to do this draft correctly. I did give a heads up to the House clerk that they would be getting this bill, be a strike all, and that Gina was going to be the reporter.
What?
All right, I have a version 4.3 ready to share. Who wants to look at it? And share my screen.
You're not going to have to send this back to editing, are you?
To make a change like that, no.
Get out of here and go home.
Amen.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. So I'll start at the top just so you can see everything. This is now a draft 4.3 reflecting, I shorted us by 5 minutes, but rounded 2:15 p.m. today. By the time I finish talking through it, we'll be at 2:15. And everything remains the same compared to draft 4.2 with one exception, and that is on page 5, where we just discussed. So this is page 5, now lines 17 through 18, just on 17. So non-discrimination, the department's decision not to accommodate a transgender, gender diverse, or intersex individual's search, classification, or housing placement request shall not be based solely on the individual's anatomy, including the genitalia, other physical characteristics, or diverse gender expression. And everything else.
Need that clarifies that section a little bit better.
I think you said.
Can't discriminate on one thing.
And just to scroll through the rest of the bill, everything else in the bill remains the same.
I want to make sure, because Will wants to use one of his votes on Zoom today. Is he available?
He said he's sending a place all over right now.
No, I'm available.
Darn it.
Be careful driving, Will.
No, I'm pulling over.
Okie dokie.
And Tate, I'm sending this to you now, just so.
So I would entertain a motion to vote out H 550 draft 4.3. Was that the number?
Draft 4.3, and I can bring it back up as soon as I.
No, that's fine, as long as I know. It's 4.3.
Yes, 4.3.
H 550 draft number 4.3 to vote it out favorably. So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Connor Casey,
Yes.
Gina Galfetti,
Yes.
Representative Greer,
Yes.
Representative Gregoire,
Yeah.
Representative Hedrick,
Yes.
Representative Luno,
No.
Representative Minier,
Yes.
Representative Morrissey,
Yes.
Representative Sweeney, yes. Representative Winter,
No with explanation?
and Chair Emmons.
Yes. 920. Good work, guys.
There was a lift.
Yeah, so you wanted to explain your vote?
Yeah.
You don't need to, but you can.
Go ahead. I would like to.
Okay.
I voted no because I think this is an ineffective way to increase the safety for these particular individuals, and I would prefer seeing the money and the time spent to increase the safety of all inmates. And I think there's some very basic ways that it can be done. It does take money, but it's got to be a change in perception on how we treat our incarcerated. Rather than focusing on the few, I think all should be safe. And I think it's very feasible because they are in a contained facility due to their sentencing.
Mhm. So, Brian?
I want to thank the rep from Ludlow for working with me on language when he wasn't going to vote for something anyway and everybody's hungry. So thanks.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I just also want to hit the point. I'm grateful to be on a committee where we can disagree agreeably and respect your opinions, Kevin, Joe,
And I wish we could have gone out in the hall. It's just we were on a.
No, I understand.
Normally I would, but I think what Kevin says really opens the door for work that we can do
Mhm.
when we're not under a deadline here to get something out. And that was one thing that I mentioned at the beginning here, for some of these folks that were sitting in here have been incarcerated. And they shared some things with me at lunchtime that I thought was really important for members here in the committee to hear, that feeds in a little to what Kevin was saying. And I think that's why I wanted them to come in probably sometime in April when we really focus. And I think we can't change everything overnight, but these little steps here and there, like supervisory fees, is making a big difference. The ID cards, driver's license is making a big difference. Kids Apart's making a big difference. There is a culture in corrections. It's really hard to change. And it's been ingrained there for years and years and years and years, and there's a stigma that goes with it.
Mhm.
And you can't legislate that away. You can give them tools to work with. And that's the best thing we can do. I mean, I would love to change a lot of things in corrections that are happening. So I appreciate what Kevin said, because he's absolutely right. It's how do we do it for the whole system? And yes, we do it bit by bit and chip by chip. But we get there in the end. We could never give up to get there in the end for that. So I really appreciate.
Also, like anything else, it's almost like an organism, right? So you can never be perfect. You can only get better, and the dynamics change of what makes sense over time.
And it depends who's in leadership of that particular facility. So that does change that facility operation. You change superintendents and you have a whole different culture in that building. You change the commissioner at the top and you've got a whole different culture from central office and what comes through down the line to the boots on the ground. You change some of the correctional officers that age out. They've been there for a long time, have a certain way of looking at things. They retire, you get a new group in that has different life experiences, different focus. That's going to change the culture in the facility. So it's always growing. Sometimes it takes a couple steps back.
Yep.
Sometimes it will take more steps forward. And, but we're all going after the same goal, that our people who are held under our state custody are held in a safe environment.
Hopefully rebuild it.
No.
We've got members who haven't had lunch.
So thank you all for the work that you've done. The work we did yesterday was big, helped today. We're done.